My name's Lynn. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm from Weston, Florida.
My name is Christine. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm from Coral Springs, Florida.
And we have been together for 3 years.
The way I navigated my identities, I guess I tried to, was the first thing I did was join CASA. Back then I didn't really know I was gay. I think after that I started getting I started thinking more about what it means to navigate the world as I am. I did more with Gatorship. I started navigating my gayness.
Similar to Lynn, when I first came to college, I just joined CASA because I was Chinese. But then when I started identifying as LGBT, I dabbled in some of the PSU stuff and I dabbled with Happy and things like that. But for the most part, I just kind of stayed in CASA.
Well, when I first came out to Christine, I kind of looked to her to help me navigate that because I didn't know any other gay Asians. So, she was the only one I knew. So then I would just ask her, all the questions that I had, how do you feel about, all these things, how did you know, when did you know, and all that stuff. So I really looked to her as a source of guidance.
For me, I didn't really have anyone as a guidance because all of the people I knew that were out weren't Asian. So even when we share hardships and stuff like that, it just wasn't quite the same, It was really just me kind of coming to terms on my own or doing some research or, those inspirational quotes or pick-me-ups and stuff like that to try to just go through for the most part.
So for my parents, I had to do this whole thing. I turned it into this whole thing because I don't know, it was really important to me that they knew and then that I knew that they still loved me. I came out to them twice and the first time was that I liked girls and the second time was to tell them that I didn't like boys. And about Christine. So the first time I think they were okay. They were thank you for telling us, and it was this very Christian thing where we talked about it as if I was confessing to a sin. Yeah, it had the tone of can you forgive me for this? And I was asking God for forgiveness too. And then the second time was more after I read things, I met more gay Christians, gay and trans Christians, reading about their stories and how they came to terms with it. I realized that being gay and Christian aren't mutually exclusive. Those two don't have to be identities that traumatize each other. And so for the second time, me coming out to my parents, it was pretty scary, but I had that resolve after reading all of that and talking to other people.
I kind of have a two-part thing to how I came out to my mom specifically. Back then, I was actually with my ex who was a man. When I was with him, around that time frame was when I actually developed a crush for a girl. And I was just kind of telling my mom about it because she was my best friend and I just wanted to tell her. And she kind of flipped out in a sense, and she was just oh, but it will never be, and it's not a big deal. Or she didn't say it's not a big deal, but because I was with a man back then, she was just just make sure you don't act on it, it's just it's an admiration kind of thing, it's not a crush. When I broke things off with my ex back then, it was mainly because I was really questioning my sexuality back then, and at some point I came out to my mom and she didn't take it very well. All I really remember at this point was she was standing, and once I told her that I liked girls, her knees instantly gave out and she was just kind of on the floor. And she was leaning against the wall, and I'm trying to tell her, are you okay? Just trying to comfort her or say, it's not the end of the world. I was trying to tell her at that time I was pansexual specifically. So I was maybe I won't end up with a girl, not that it's anything, but I was trying to reassure her in a sense, even though that's not what I came out to her for. She kind of just shut me off and was don't talk to me, you're gonna give me a heart attack. And then she left the room. That was like mainly the end of our conversation for the most part. For my dad though, I actually never got the chance to come out to him because when he came home, the first thing she did was tell him. But my dad, on the other hand, did react. Well, granted, I didn't see his reaction. The next day, he told me, you know, your mom told me, and my uncle is gay. And he was like, you know, love is still love. And he was like really accepting on it, on the other hand.
So I think a lot of people, and especially me, I find it more healing to identify sort of actively and like really participate in that. And I read like a post recently that really spoke to me about this. And it was like, your label isn't like an essential part of you that like can never change. It's not like cold and scientific. It's like something that you should be participating in by choice. And so for me, it like had a really big part in how I dealt with compulsory heterosexuality. And I guess for people who don't know what that is since we're socialized to be straight, then we often like mistake some feelings for like attraction. And so like a lot of my feelings toward women, I feel like I thought were admiration, but maybe could have been something else.
When I was first still coming in terms with my identity, I mentioned I didn't have like any person for guidance or anything, so everything I knew were basically just like stereotypes for the most part. So one of the first things I did when I knew like at least I wasn't straight was I cut off my hair. So literally my hair used to go all the way down to like my back, and then like it was just gone. Like it's been this short since that moment really. And like I just really like I'm not proud of it, but I followed stereotypes pretty much. So like I dressed more masculine and I wore a lot of hats. Like I do present myself more masculine and I do like hats and stuff like that. Like I think that part of like my transition to being more comfortable with myself was pretty important.
The reason I guess I felt for her is because she's like so generous and like just a kind person. Like how can one person be so giving and have like such a big heart?
I really love Lynn because she's also very generous and she's like very caring and she's always just trying to like give back or like help people or just anything really.
Me personally, lesbian means I prioritize and I love the women in my life and in the world. So I like see that as more of like how I choose to exist, and that empowers me.